Hey guys, this is Jeff from Super Geeked Up, and I'm going to take you through a basic guide to playing Gwent. If you haven't heard of Gwent, it was actually a card game that was in The Witcher 3, so it's kind of like a mini game, and it's just a really awesome game. I actually look forward to playing it every chance I got in The Witcher 3, and now they've released the game as its own standalone game. It's in beta right now, so which means it's totally free to play. And so I'm going to take you through kind of the basics and beginning stuff of it. I am not an expert by any means. As you see up in the top right there, I am level 5. So I haven't been playing that long myself. But hopefully this will help you out if you're totally new and you've never played before. And if you haven't played in a while and you have other tips that I'm not going over, please leave them in the comment section. I would love to hear those myself and share those with other people watching this. Okay. So I'm going to turn off my webcam here and also turn on the game music so you can see the thing full screen. Okay, so this is what the game looks like when you first go in. I'm going to go over to the cards section here and the decks. So you got basically 5 different decks you can play with. As you see here, so you have Francesca's deck. That's actually, when you first play, it's going to say Scoia'tael on it. So there's that deck. They got the Skellige deck, the Northern Realms, Monsters, and the Nilfgaard. And they all have starter decks when you start with 25 cards. And then you can gain more cards as you win more matches and get something called ore, which you can use to buy decks. You can also pay money to do them as well. I'm going to go in here. This is actually my favorite deck with the Scoia'tael, which are basically elves and dwarves. Okay, so this is all the cards I have in this deck right now. If you look over here on the left-hand side, you'll see there are bronze, silver, and gold cards. And as you might expect, the gold, of course, are the most powerful, and the bronze are the least powerful. So your total cards have to be somewhere between 25 and 40. Most players I've seen, and myself included, try to keep it pretty close to 25. Most people I see usually somewhere between 25 and 28 cards. I think the idea there is obviously you have a greater chance of getting your best cards if you don't put too many extra cards that are not that powerful in there. Gold and silver, you have actually a limited amount. Silver, you can only have 6 cards, and gold, you can only have 4. Bronze, you have unlimited amounts as long as they don't go exceed their maximum of 40. So over here, you're going to see, so this is a bronze card. You see the border there, which is the brown border, and this would be a silver border, and this would be gold. So that's how you can tell if they're bronze, silver, or gold. So on the top left is the value of the card. You see a 5 there on this Hawker Healer. And so the whole point of this game, of course, is to have more points at the end of the round than your opponent, and you want to win 2 out of 3 rounds to win the match. Okay, so higher value cards obviously are usually better. However, now the cards do not just, it's not just like worth 5 though. Each card has an ability usually with it, which you can see underneath. Like in this one where you see deploy there underneath that card. So besides giving you 5 points, she's going to boost 2 of your allies by 3. As you see, besides underneath there, as you see on the left-hand side, a little window comes up, which is quite helpful. It actually tells you what each kind of keywords means in the description there underneath the card. And deploy just means as soon as you play it, that power activates. So what's important to keep in mind is I don't think of this card really as a 5. I think of it more as an 11. And the reason is she's going to get me 5, but as long as I have 2 other allies on the board, they also get 3 each. So that's going to be a total of 11 to my score. So this is actually, I think, a pretty good card. Now, of course, you have to have 2 allies already on the board to take advantage of that. So the order in which you play things is very important. If you go over to this dwarf, see he can boost an ally by 4. So really, as long as there's a card on the board, he's actually worth a 10. And then if it's a dwarf, he only strengthens it by 3. So there's a lot of, it's very important to pay attention to exactly all the rules here and what happens with each card. Again, though, I do like to think of the card as not just the base value in the upper left, but what it can do if it's either hurting the enemy or boosting me. And I'm trying to see, like, let me go over here to Triss. Triss is actually my favorite character from the Witcher games. So she's worth an 8, which is pretty good on its own, but she also damages an enemy by 5. So really, that's like a 13 as far as I'm concerned that Triss can do. You know, you do have ones like this. This is a dwarf who's worth 9, and he doesn't damage or boost anybody, but he does lock a unit. And let me get back to that actually in a minute. Okay, so anyway, those are kind of the cards there. And now let me talk about these rows. So there's you see here, you can't see it here, but this row up top has a sword on it, like this icon right there underneath the 9. So basically there's 3 rows, and a lot of units can only be played on one row. This is kind of like your more melee row. This would be your, this middle row is more like your archery row, and this is kind of like your siege engine row. So as you see here, this guy can only be placed on this top row when you're playing the game. She can only be played on this middle row, and this guy can only be played on this bottom row. Now, however, a lot of cards, like Triss, have the 2 arrow icons, which means they can be placed on any of the 3 rows, which is actually very nice. Okay, so why does that row stuff matter? Well, a couple of different reasons. There's actually our weather cards. Here's one right here. Okay, so weather cards can affect your enemy in the entire row. So this card, White Frost, applies frost, it says, to a row on my opponent's side and the row above it. So if I played this card, I could cover either these 2 rows or the top 2 rows on my opponent's side. And weather is actually pretty useful because each turn it damages the lowest unit by 2 of your on your opponent. So he's losing or she's losing 2 every single turn as long as that weather card is on the board. And this one covering 2 to 3 rows is pretty good. That means if your opponent had cards in 2 different rows, you're actually taking out 4 every round from your opponent pretty much. So that's why it can be important. Like, so if your opponent has played a weather card on your siege engine, your bottom row, these cards become important where you can play anywhere, because then you can play them obviously on a row where there's not weather involved, because you want to obviously try to stay away from that. Now, the good news is if you do get weather played against you, and there's not just frost, there's rain and other stuff, you have these cards which are called First Light, and it says clear skies. So that will actually clear any weather from your board. Even if all 3 rows had weather on them, it would clear all of them. So that's the way you get rid of somebody playing a weather card against you. So that's not a bad idea to have 1 or 2 of those in your hand. By the way, just you see next to it, you see this is the same card, but you see animation going on there. Basically, it seems like for me, every card has a enhanced version where you see some cool animation with it. And the cards, for all I can see, don't do any different, more power or more damage or anything. It's just a cooler version of the card. We also have, which are on the bottom here, these special cards. These are generally things that are either doing damage to your enemy or boosting you. This guy here, Alzur's Thunder, damages an enemy by 7. So that's all he does. He just takes 7 away from any opponent. The Swallow Potion boosts any of your units by 8. This thing here, Thunderbolt Potion, boosts 3 of your adjacent units by 3 and adds 2 armor to each of them. So as long as you have 3 cards, now, and it would have to be like in this situation here, where I have 3 cards on the same row, that's what's considered adjacent, that they're on the same row. If I played this card and selected this middle archer, all 3 of these units would get 3 extra points, and they would also get 2 armor. So armor, and it'll appear as a shield with a number on it when you get armor on your card. It's useful because if someone tries to damage you, first they take away the armor before they take away this, like 6, for example. So if she had 2 armor and attack did 5, the 2 armor would go away, and then she would take another 3 points of damage rather than all of the 5. This card here is actually really cool, Commander's Horn. It boosts 5 adjacent units by 4. Now, so the key to this, though, is, of course, you have to have actually 5 units played, and they all have to be in the same row to take maximum advantage of this. But if you have 5 units and you play this card, it's 20 points you're getting, which is probably just one about the biggest boost you could ever get. So So see, there's a lot of strategy in this game, which is why I really like it, because it all has to do with the order you play the cards in and how you're setting yourself up for your future cards and anticipating what your opponent's going to do. Okay, so now down here, these are the other cards I own, but I'm not actually in my deck. And I can add any of these I wanted. So like if I wanted to add this, another Frost card, I would just do this, and then I just, boom, it's added to my deck right there. Now, I don't have that because I got this card later on, and this is a more powerful Frost card. So if I wanted to remove this card, I would just click on it again, and it goes back down here. Now you can actually sort your cards here. This is showing me all the cards I have, and I could scroll through them like this. Or I could go here and just sort them. So these would all be the bronze cards. These are all my silver cards. And these are all my gold cards. So that's a way if you want to find a certain card to play. And again, as you play more and as you win more matches, and there's a lot of challenges you can do against the computer, you're able to buy more decks with the ore you earn, and you can get better cards that way and obviously improve your decks. By the way, here's Gerald, who the Witcher himself, who is pretty much at 13, the max base value I've seen so far. It is his game after all. This guy is another Go card. He's worth 10, but you also see that he'll boost 1 for each dwarf ally and damage anybody every elf ally you have. So again, playing him after you have some dwarves and elves on the boards is very handy. Now this guy I like, but he's a dangerous card to have. He's worth 8, which is pretty good. You'll see there, after 3 turns, he destroys all the other highest units on the board. So what that means is, after you've played him, after 3 units have gone by, whatever the highest unit on the board is, so let's say there was a 10 on the board, and that was the highest unit, that card's gonna be destroyed. It doesn't exist anymore. So that's great if your opponent has that 10. If you have the highest card on the board, that's not good because it's going to destroy one of your own cards. Now, if there were 2 10s on the board and they were both the highest, that means both of them disappear. Now, one thing I wasn't sure about this card, and I've seen other people not be sure about it too, I didn't know once this activates if he destroys himself, but he doesn't, because I've done this. I've played this more than once now. It says destroy all the other ones, so he stays, even if he was the highest, and he destroys whatever the other highest cards are besides himself. I've used this card very effectively, and it's actually helped me win the match before. It's actually also kind of worked against me before if the opponent did something to kind of weaken himself and then make one of my cards the highest. Because there are ways you can actually weaken yourself. It's a dangerous card to play, but it can be very good if you play it right. By the way, speaking of that, so most of these cards like this are you can only damage your enemy, not yourself. Normally you wouldn't want to damage yourself anyway. Somebody like Triss, though, it says damage a unit. So unit means you can damage anybody, including one of your own units. Now again, you might want to do that if you have really high cards on the board and you know this guy is going to get rid of them. You might want to take one of your cards down by Triss damaging it so your opponent has the highest cards. There's other situations too where there may be a card that's going to activate against you, and you want to try to get rid of it. Okay, let me go back to this guy who has a lock thing on, which is again is a little. I didn't really totally understand that at first, but it actually tells you right there as you see the description that comes up. So if you lock, and you'll actually see a chain and a lock appear over the card once you play it. It basically, like it says there, takes away the card's power, not its numerical power, but whatever its ability is. So, for example, if you locked this guy, he is the turn, that little timer there where it says 3, he stops counting down. He's not going to destroy any of the highest units while he's locked. So that would be a way to take this guy out of the equation in terms of him destroying the highest units. And there's other cards that have that like countdown ability and that stuff. So lock is a way to basically take somebody's ability out of the equation. It also, you see, that it removes any tokens like resilience. So resilience, and I don't have any cards in this particular deck that do that, but resilience, it'll appear as a fist on your card if you play it. It's actually a very handy thing. If you at the end of a round, if you have a card that has resilience on it, that card stays on the board until your next round. So you actually have So let's say, just for example, she had resilience on her. This card, which worth 6, is going to stay on my board for round 2, like if we just did round 1. So I have a bonus 6 pretty much automatically if I have resilience on a card. So that could be very helpful. And it's something I actually didn't understand why these cards were appearing on my opponent's board in rounds until I learned about resilience. So if your opponent has resilience, it's generally a good idea to try to get rid of that card off the board if you're trying to win the round anyway. Okay, let me go out of this deck. Let me go into Northern Realms. That's my second favorite deck to play. Let me go over these cards here. So this is these are trebuchets, and there are cards like this which, besides having a value like 7, they also, as you see there, they damage an enemy by 1 every turn. And this card actually ignores armor, which is pretty nice, so the armor can't protect an enemy. So if I have this card, I like to play it early. So each round I'm doing 1 damage to my opponent. So that's always nice. Kind of like Frost, you know, it's something that's going to help you take down your opponent every round. This is a handy card to have to get rid of that. So if somebody plays a siege engine, like a trebuchet card, and you have this card, you can just eliminate that right off the bat, and that's not going to help you anymore. There are also cards like this, which when you play it, it lets you play another card. That's actually a big key to this game. I see a lot of opponents playing cards that let them play extra cards. So she's only worth 3, which is not very good at all. It's one of the lowest cards you'll see value-wise. She lets you play a random bronze weather card from your deck. Now, in this case, which I just realized, I only have a silver weather card, so I'm actually going... Oh, no, I do have actually this one too. So, I would, if I played her, I could play this Biting Frost card for free and cover one of my enemy's rows with Frost, which is, again, is going to take him down by 2 every turn. So that's actually pretty helpful. You get to play a weather card, and you get an extra 3. There's ones like this, which remove armor from a unit and boost self by the amount of armor removed. So let's say you played this guy who gains 3 armor as soon as he's deployed. So if I played him and then I played this guy, I can remove the 3 armor from him, and then this becomes an 11, which is pretty nice. Now, of course, I lose the armor on him. Now, however, if my opponent has armor, that's even better, because I can remove my opponent's armor and boost myself. Now, this guy, who's super powerful as it is with an 11, at the start of every turn, he gains 2 armor to the... He already gets 4 armor at the beginning, but then he gets 2 armor every turn. So if I played him early, and I'm boosting that armor every turn, and let's say I get up to like 10 armor, I could then play him, and then get an extra 10 to this unit. So again, you know, it's really about thinking about the order you play the cards in, and how it can best benefit you. Philippa here, even though she's only a 1, this is actually one of the best cards, I think, in the entire game so far that I've seen. Because if you look at what she does there, she damages the enemy by 5, then random enemies by 4, 3, 2, and 1. So that's 15 total damage you are doing to your opponent. It's the most damage I've seen any card do. It says the same enemy cannot be damaged twice in a row. That doesn't mean, though, you need 5 enemies on the board. You really just need 2, because it can go back and forth between the 2. So as long as you have enough enemies that can take a total of 15 damage, this could be really... She could be a game changer. That's why she's a gold card. Oh, and this guy, let's look at this guy. It says you can make mulligan a card. So that means when you play this, you can take any card from your hand and throw it back and get rid of it and draw a new card. In this case, you can only choose a Bronze Spell or Alchemy card, which would be something like this, or this card here. Now, Francesca, who was one of the leaders of the Scoia'tael deck, the first deck I showed you, her ability is actually to mulligan any card in your hand and replace it with any card, which is awesome because you can get rid of a crappy card you have in your hand and take your best card from your deck and replace it, which is really helpful. So by the way, speaking of that, every time you play this game, you have a deck of between 25 and 40 cards, but then you draw 11. So you start the game with 11 cards, as does your opponent. And when you start, you can pick 3 to replace. So if you drew, if there's certain ones you don't think are as powerful as other ones, you can try to draw a better card into your deck. For the second round, you draw 2 cards, and you can replace 1. And the last round, third round, you draw 1 card, and you can replace that if you want. Okay, let's talk about the leaders. So over here in your lower left, you always have your leader. Now, from what I've seen, each faction here, like Northern Realms, Scoia'tael, has 3 different leaders. As you do these challenges that are against the CPU, you can open up other leaders. So this is Foltest, who's the starting leader of the Northern Realms. The leaders have special abilities, as you see here. So when you play him, he boosts every unit you have, whether it's on the board, if it's in your hand, if it's in your deck, by 1. So that's actually really good. Everybody's going up by 1. So I actually a lot of times like to play him pretty early on, even in round 1, because I'm getting a boost to everybody I play in that round, and also to second and third rounds as well. Because once he boosts them, they don't lose that boost in the other rounds. They stay that way. Some leaders, I think it is better to wait later on in the game, like Francesca. I actually often do wait because of that mulligan ability. I wait until I really need it. But in his case, I think it's not a bad idea to play him early on. And leaders, by the way, when you see that stubborn ability there, they cannot be disabled by that lock thing that I told you about. They also cannot return from the board to the hand or deck. Like some cards, you play certain cards and you can take your card back from the deck and replay it with a higher power. All right, let me show you another couple of things real quick here. So if I go back to my Francesca's deck, there are cards like this which spawn like traps, basically. So she spawns a fireball trap on the opposing row. So basically when you play her, you put a fireball card on one of your opponent's rows, and after 1 round that card goes off, and it actually damages every unit on the row by 2. So again, if you play it right, that can be very powerful. If you wait till there are 4 or 5 units on your opponent's row, you can do 8 or 10 damage to your opponent, which is pretty powerful. If I go over to the Nilfgaard, has another. They have some cards like that. If I can just find it here. Oh, here we go. Rot Tosser. So spawns a cow carcass on your opponent's side, and I think that's I think the cow carcass takes 2 rounds to go off. But whatever the lowest ranked card is on that row, you place it on your opponent. The cow carcass after 2 rounds destroys that unit. Now, so if you happen to put that on a row where there's a pretty powerful card, like let's say a row only had like a card with an 8 on it, that 8's going to go away, which isn't bad. That you're getting the 6 for playing this card, and then you're going to eliminate one of your opponent's cards too. So again, there are cards that spawn other cards, and that can definitely damage your opponent. Cards like this. So this card, an agent card, actually goes onto your opponent's row. So you're actually giving your opponent 2 points, but you get to draw the top 2 bronze units from your deck, play one of them. So even though you're giving your opponent 2, the idea is you're getting to draw a free card, and hopefully it's a pretty decent one that you're drawing. So that's pretty much the basics of Gwent. Again, not getting there's more involved in this, but just to kind of get you a start on this, hopefully that was helpful. Again, if you have other questions, please leave them in the comment section. I'll be happy to try to answer them. Or if you have different advice or comments about if you guys play Gwent that can help people out, I would love to hear them. I'm sure that would help me out myself. Thank you guys very much for watching. The next video, I'm actually going to play a round against a computer so you guys can see this in action. So mostly what we do on our Super Geeked Up channel, if you're not familiar with us, is that we do a bunch of different geeky shows. So we do a geeky improv show. It's kind of like Whose Line Is It Anyway, but all geek themed. I have a Super Knocked Up comedy series as well. We do some RPG gaming shows and a DC show as well. So you can see those all on your screen right there when we do them. And you can find those all right on this YouTube channel if any of those you think you might be interested in. And supergeekedup.com is our website. We would definitely appreciate it if you want to check that out. And we have a Patreon too. If you really dig the shows, if you get a chance to watch them and dig what we're doing and want to support us, you can do that over there. Thank you guys very much for watching. Check out the next video where we'll do some gameplay of Gwent. And definitely go get Gwent. It's free right now. It's at the GOG website. So if you go to GOG, you can get it for free. Also, if you once you get it, if you get GOG Galaxy, you can, if you subscribe to their email, they will give you a free deck of 5 cards, and they also give you a free download of the first Witcher game, the Enhanced Edition, which I had actually never played. I started with The Witcher 2, so I thought that was definitely worth it. So go and grab that. And I am Knightsfall on GOG. If you'd like to friend request me and play some Gwent, please feel free to do so. All right, guys, thank you for watching. I'll see you soon, and stay geeky, everybody. Bye.